background. And then we'll carry on to when he joined the Air Force.
Yep, so he was born in Langworth, Manitoba. It was a small farming community. He got the photography bug at age 10. He bought his first camera and was hooked ever since. He also used to love free-flying model airplanes with his oldest brother, Keith, and they would crash land them and do a little search and rescue trying to find them. And Langworth was nearby a bombing and gunnery range, I understand. And so a lot of the NATO test pilots would come into town, and he was always in awe of their crisp dressed uniforms and all of the stories they would tell. And they always had a lot of women around them. And he said, I want that life. So he, at age 17, went to Winnipeg and signed up to be part of the Air Force. So yeah, he signed up, and then from there he went to Saint Jean, Quebec for his basic training, and then on to Camp Borden where he did his trades training. And that's where I understand you didn't really have any control over what you were going to get back then. You couldn't really choose, and he landed with photo tech, and the rest is history. So,
well, I can't recall anybody in the Air Force that doesn't know your father's name, either by actual name or any of the photographs that he took during his time in the Air Force. You go to any Air Force mess, even now in Canada, and there'll be pictures up on the wall that your dad took.
So true. I'm finding that myself as well. I was just at the Diefenbunker about 2-3 years ago and came across some photos of his there. They're everywhere, and they're on history books and in magazines and everything in between, for sure.
Do you recall any famous people that your dad might have met throughout his career that he might have taken photographs?
There were so many. He definitely, he was the official photographer for Indira Gandhi when she came for her tour of Canada.
Right.
In 1973, I believe. In 1976, he was the official photographer for Queen Elizabeth. She was here for the Summer Olympics, so she met her and her family. Pierre Trudeau, many governor generals, some actors. Leslie Nielsen, he's met. Chris Hadfield, famous astronaut.
Right.
So many, yes.
Yes.
And many more. I'm not even sure. He was just very modest at home.
Okay, so your dad spent how many years in the Air Force?
53, unbroken service.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And he retired as a master warrant officer.
Correct. Yes. So he retired. He retired from the regular force and then got right into working for Air Force Magazine.
Right.
Pretty much within the year of that. So
yeah,
as the editor of Air Force Magazine.
I remember the first year your dad started the Air Force Magazine. I did a couple of stories for him, and he was quite excited about the endless possibilities of working for them. And how long did he serve with the magazine?
He was there, I believe, from 1991 to 2012.
I thought it was, yeah.
He just loved that job, for sure.
He finally decides to retire. And what did he do post-retirement?
Post-retirement, oh boy, he loved his cottage. He was up there a lot. He always had so many interests. He loved to cook, and he loved to garden, and he still loved to do some traveling. Family was really important to him after his retirement, especially. Right. Did a lot of travel out west to see his family there, and southern Ontario for my mom's side of the family. A lot of time with the grandparents, and
Right.
He continued to be very passionate about Canada in general. He had a ferocious appetite for the news. He never missed any news.
Did he maintain his interest in photography post-military service?
He did, for sure, but he took a lot of nature photography, actually. He loved to just go out in his garden and do photography of flowers and that sort of thing. A lot of pictures of the family, for sure. A lot of pictures of the grandkids.
Yeah, that's understandable.
Yeah.
All right, and that leads us to the very sad part about his passing away.
Yeah, he passed away in 2018. A really short illness. It was quite short.
I'm still sorry to hear that. I really enjoyed my time working with him, and that there are very few Air Force photographers that I can think of that had the impact that your dad had in the trade and outside of the trade.
Oh, that's really nice for you to say. Thank you.
Yeah. How about we talk about his time in the Gulf War?
So at the time, that was 1991.
91, yes.
He was on the HMCS Protector. He sailed out of Halifax and served on the Protector, arrived in the Middle East, and spent some time in Bahrain as well. At the time, we didn't really think that he was, there was that many risks involved. He really downplayed it, and I was busy with college and And but when he came back was when we heard more of the stories of some of the harrowing moments. A lot of airstrikes, a lot of time spent in like bomb shelters. The camera over there is a weapon of war, and so he had to be very careful what he photographed and when, and, aware of his environment, stifling heat and humidity, but he was supplying almost all of the information back to the media outlets all across Canada. And
how did you and the rest of the family feel about him being in a war zone?
Dad I think because he was never fearful of anything, he was just a very fearless person. Everything was just an adventure for him. And because of his demeanor going there, I think it made us calm about that as well. So, yeah, he came back with lots of stories, and it was, a great adventure for him. I know it was war, and definitely a highlight of his career.
I'm sure he must have taken thousands of photos while he was there, because you can't go in here, like I said before, seeing a photograph by Vic Johnson, and a lot of them are golf related.
Yes, and I understand that any photos related, especially that were coming out of Bahrain, I was actually thinking we could talk. One last thing was his most terrifying moment in his career. I don't know if I mentioned it when we were emailing about when he was up in the CF5 flying over Primrose Lake. I forgot all about that story, and he was always telling everybody about it. But back when he was in CFB Cold Lake, he was up in a CF5, and they were going about 800 kilometers an hour over Primrose Lake. And I guess they were on a really steep pull-up, and the G-force caused him to pass out briefly. When he came to, all he saw was a lot of blood, a lot of gore, all over the canopy, all over the pilot. He thought that the pilot head had exploded. He didn't know what had happened. And it turns out that they had hit a pelican, and it turned out to be quite a big one, a 16-pounder, I understand. And took a while, but then he heard the pilot talking to him, so he was very relieved that he was alive. But they still had quite a time getting the plane down. One of the engines was starting to stall. It was backfiring, so it was terrifying for him. But he never let that stop him. He was right back in the saddle after that.
Yep. Sounds like your dad.
Yep, absolutely.
So
yeah, I sent you an interesting. Well, there's a photo on Claimed magazine that he'd actually had delivered to him on the ship of him doing his famous selfie with the CF-18s. But that, I don't know if you're familiar with that photo, but it was actually taken over Germany in, I think, 1984. So it wasn't even related to the Gulf, but I guess they liked the photo and ran with it from McLean's.
Right. Yeah. Well, again, I thank you very much for taking the time out to talk to us today about your father.
Thank you very much.
Like I said before, I really miss him, and what can I say?
Oh, he would have loved being part of this. And I think
he was a living legend.
Oh, thank you so much. We all loved him very much.